So here we go. We're going to take it humbly right from the start. What is SEO? The major benefits of it. We're going to go behind the scenes briefly to understand each and every one of the more prominent algorithm changes, technology changes, capability changes that Google has applied to their modern search algorithms. They all have a history that go back years, and you need to understand the evolution of the Google search engine from the earlier years to where it is today and how it got to where it's gotten today. Then we delve a little bit into the future by discussing a little bit about the impact of IPAs, otherwise known as intelligent personal assistants, the Alexas, the Cortanas of the world, and how they may impact search in the very, very near future. Then I'm going to go straight into a string of concepts and approaches that, as I said, I've literally just strung together. It's not necessarily 100% original. That's not the goal. But the goal is to give you a guided step-by-step process that you can execute, and knowing the salient points within each of these steps itself. And we're going to start off with step 1, which I call keyword intelligence. I'm going to tell you what it's all about, what you need to do, what are the tools required, and the steps required to go about achieving and completing this step. Then we're going to move on to step number 2, which is competitive intelligence. This is one area that most practitioners don't spend enough time on. As a result, they end up creating an SEO plan with their own personal agenda and goals, but they realize that they either face a lot of difficulty trying to achieve their goals, and that is primarily because they don't understand that how successful you are in achieving your SEO goals is largely dependent on who you're competing with. It's like running a 100-meter race, my friends. If you are a slow runner, let me say this again, right? If you're a slow runner, the only conceivable way to win the race is if you run against people even slower than you. You need to know where you are and find competitors you can beat. So this is not about training all of you to be 100-meter Olympians. You don't have to run 9.4 seconds to win in SEO. And this is something a lot of people still don't get today. You choose niches and you choose keywords that appeal to you without regard to step 2, competitive intelligence. It makes a big difference. Your success in this game would be far greater in your favor if you knew how to win the game. The key is that when you choose a project, especially for those of you who are solopreneurs and you are deciding which niche to dominate. Now you can choose any niche to dominate, and that is your biggest advantage, as opposed to doing an SEO project where you're paid by a company to optimize their website to get to the top of the search engine rankings for their keyword. And that's the reason why a lot of people consider SEO consultancy a scam, because you cannot make a blanket statement, my friends, and say, for example, that I'll help you get to the top of the search engine rankings guaranteed. There's no guarantee. It depends on the competitiveness of your niche. And therefore, you certainly cannot prescribe a proper SEO plan without understanding the competition landscape. And all the work, the effort, and the technique to doing that is laid out in step 2, competitive intelligence. Number 3, content intelligence and optimization. This step deserves its own segment and care and attention, because the weightage of what you say on your page has an overwhelming influence on how you're going to rank. Obviously, in comparison to your competitors, for sure. Everything in SEO is with comparison to your competition. And that is the reason why you need to know your competitors like fingertip. You need to know everything about them. You need to know their strengths, their weaknesses, and come up with a plan to leapfrog over them. And your starting weapon, your most important and powerful weapon, is what you say on your pages. And again, as I said, we're no more in the lexical era. We're in the semantic era where you have to consider a lot of factors. And without the use of fairly sophisticated tools, I'm going to tell you that if you put together content without the use of fairly sophisticated semantic tools, you are merely guessing your way through. You are taking what we call the best effort approach towards content. You are not taking a scientific approach towards content, and you will end up mediocre. Now, does it mean that you won't rank just because you're mediocre? Well, I didn't say that, because everything is relative. So if you can put together mediocre content and outrank your competitors, well, don't be so happy. All it means that your competitors are more mediocre than you. That's really what it is. Now, of course, let's not take away credit where credit is due. I have a very good example which I'll reference quite often during this training, which is my own flight school, where I rank for arguably majority of the industry keywords, from flight training to flying lessons to private pilot license to how to obtain a private pilot license, the cost of a private pilot license, and so on and so forth. Learn to fly even. I cover pretty much 80-90% of the industry keywords. And truth be told, I put the content together. I did not use sophisticated tools at that point in time, but I was able to rank page 1 number 1 for 90% of my important query. Why? Because my content was not mediocre. My content was industry-based content, because I'm genuinely a private pilot. I've gone through the process of obtaining a private pilot license. And I know this for a fact, that I'm an industry practitioner. So, if you're an industry practitioner, you're a weight loss expert, or you hire someone who's a weight loss expert, or if the content's written by an aesthetic doctor, chances are that it would be sufficient without the use of expert tools. However, what you need to understand is that in spite of experts writing content, if you're in an extremely competitive niche, like one of the recent projects that I completed, which is aesthetic clinic, and working on words like chemical pills and Botox and all these things, every competitor is an aesthetic doctor, and a pretty good one. So all of them have good content. And that's where the tool comes in. Because when it's a stalemate, where everyone is a good runner, everyone is a good cyclist, that little edge that you can have over your competitors can make a whole lot of difference. And this is why, again, in spite of your industry expertise, the tools still come into play, because they'll give you an insight in terms of where you are versus your competitors, and allow you to work on little gaps along the way that you can fill up. And filling up those gaps very often is sufficient for you to leapfrog over your competitors. One very simple question that you may ask is, does word count matter in content? Well, the answer is yes, it does matter. Obviously influenced by your competitors. If your competitors are churning long-form content, for example, 2,000 words on average, and you come up with a 500-word content, no matter how good that content is, Google is not going to view your 500-word content as favorably unless that 2,000-word content for your competitors are that deficient. And again, if it's going to be a competitive niche, they generally will not be that deficient. Solution, you have to do what they do. So if you have good quality competitors with good content quality at 2,000 words, you must first get to that 2,000 words with similar quality. Now that becomes a problem even for an expert doctor when you tell him, I need 4 times the amount of content that you're providing me. He starts scratching his head. What else do you want me to say? That is where the content tool comes in. Why? Because if the competitors can churn out 2,000 words, you can too, if you knew what were the important words and phrases in that 2,000 word content. Which is why step 3 is not just about content intelligence, it's also about content intelligence and optimization. What optimization? Optimization of the content itself. Number 4, we're going to be looking at on-page and local optimization. I put them together because to optimize your pages with a local emphasis, you do it pretty much the same time as you embark on your on-page optimization. And in step 4, I'm going to share with you step by step all the important things to look out for when it comes to on-page optimization, and also some strategies when it comes to local optimization. Then we get into step 5, off-page optimization. And truth be told again, if you can do the first 4 extremely well, step 5 is not something you want to overemphasize. And even if you do, you want to treat it from a strategic and from a branding perspective, rather than what many of you are probably thinking about this step, which is, let me get as many links as possible so that I can improve my page rank and so that I can rank on page 1. Remember, the search engines today are far more sophisticated than many years ago, and they have absolutely also advanced with regards to being able to assess off-page optimization efforts to the point of knowing that you're doing something unnatural, doing something unusual, and you end up getting penalized, or worst case, you end up getting de-indexed because of the things that you were doing that were clearly unnatural itself. And number 6, we're going to top off this entire training with having the skills to monitor performance, evaluate, and make new decisions. There's a whole suite of tools that we need to use to be able to have a good understanding on where we are today when it comes to SEO strategy, compare it against where we want to go, and identify gaps in our strategy itself. So I want to share with you some of the basic tools. Most of them are free, some are not, but I'm more interested in sharing with you the process of monitoring your SEO implementation, being able to evaluate, and being able to have next step strategies laid out from a real world perspective. In a separate session, then I'll talk to you about business models. SEO on its own doesn't sound very exciting. It sounds very geeky. It sounds very techy. But a lot of people don't understand that you don't learn SEO for the sake of doing SEO. That's not how my students who are millionaires today became millionaires. They became millionaires because they learned SEO best practice and they applied it to profitable business models like local business partnership and VRE, otherwise known as virtual real estate leasing. If you want to extract maximum ROI from your SEO knowledge, I highly recommend you apply it on the 2 business models, local business partnership and or virtual real estate leasing, and I'll explain to you how it works. Of course, I'm going to assume that your SEO knowledge is in good order. I'm just going to focus on the business aspect, the entrepreneurial aspect of these business models, which obviously depend a large percentage of the time on you being able to execute proper and correct SEO strategies.